My friend, your role as a father is critical. You matter. You are so important. We need you. 3 nuggets that hit me from my conversation with Matthew Toole today are: 1, how to talk to your boys about their future spouse. How and when to start getting them to think about that. Number 2, create space to work alongside your boys. Don't just tell them what to do, show them, teach them work ethic. Number 3, teach your sons to stick up for themselves and how to stand up to bullies. Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes Podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to both grow in our craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 18, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, and we're working on our 20th year of marriage. So I am in the thick of it. I am in this with you, and I am working daily to rebel against the low expectations set for us as fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are and show up for their families. You and I have such an incredible opportunity to impact the world simply by embracing this God-given fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend, Matthew Toole. I learned so much. I love this conversation. Such an incredible dude. Enjoy meeting my friend, Matthew. All right, what's up, my friend? Super stoked. Matthew, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. How you feeling today?
I feel great. It's a beautiful day.
Love it, man. Now, this conversation's a little special. You and I had a beautiful moment last week. It's funny because this podcast has been on the books for months. I think we even had to push it once because maybe I had a kid thing come up or something. But last week, you and I were at Rise Up Kings conference, their 7th conference. And as you were taking off, you pulled me aside and we had a conversation. And I just want to say, when 2 men can stand together and have a conversation about marriage and kids. And I won't speak for you, but I'll speak for me. I was brought to tears in that conversation because you asked me some questions and it just like hit my heart in a way that I couldn't help it. But tears came out and I'm like crying, telling you something. But when you have that type of moment in connection with another man, there's this like next level man bond that happens. And I think many of us long for that. There's just not always this space for it. So really, really appreciated that moment last week.
Man, I could tell you this. I've been longing for a connection like what you and I've had, and not just with you, but in the community that we have for probably my whole life. And I mean that super honestly. So not to get too far deep into the weeds, but right before I found Rise Up Kings, and it's so special how God just puts it in your path when you need it the most, when you feel like you're in that moment of despair, and he just shows up in a way that you would never think that he would show up. Like, it's bringing tears to my eyes right now, honestly. Like, I'm shaking over it. Like, I'm literally shaking right here, Ned. And like, just knowing the power of God, he knows what we need when we need it. And then like, that was one thing that I was praying for. Never thought at all that I would see or meet the connections that I have met through Ruck. And then, of course, I just wanted to just say hi to you real quick before I left. That was one of my I wanted to check that off my list because, there's a lot of people there. So it was great. We had a really good connection bonding moment.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I just appreciate those moments because they're rare, but they're important. Now, I would be a fool not to mention also what a badass you are in commitment. The last couple months, as we've rolled out Rise Up Kings Fitness, this new program that I've started, I just realized how many men it really struggle with the comfort of food, we can be really disciplined, but to go through a program and be disciplined for 90 days is really hard. It's really hard. Not a lot of people can do it. And I'm even surprised sometimes at the dudes who I think are going to crush it and don't. So I had to give a shout out to you on this. You started Q1 2024 Rise of Kings Fitness, and I'm just going to throw this out and then I'm going to ask you a question about it because this isn't why we're here, but I'd be a fool not to mention it. Started at 211 pounds, went to 195, 20% body fat to 16%, shave 4 minutes off the Ruck fitness test, which is no joke. Back squat, 37% increase, front squat, 10% increase, bench press, 10% increase, strict press, 16%, deadlift, 6.4%. Dude, kudos to you. That is hard to do and amazing. My one question before we get into fatherhood on that is, okay, two questions. What fruit did you see from leveling up in that area when it comes to being a father?
Yes. The fruit that I've seen is how when I make a commitment to myself or to my family, to whatever commitment I'm committing myself to, like following through on that commitment. Like my boys saw me get up every morning and I'm eating the right stuff. I'm going to do my workout. I drop them off at school. We had great bonding moments in the time. We'll get into that, I'm sure. But every day they see that routine, and then they're starting to want to do the same thing themselves.
Yes, setting that example. All right, so then ask me this, because a lot of people will do 75 hard or a 90-day program or eat, carnivore for 60 days, and then before they know it, they're just the same place they were before. What's next for you when it comes to your fitness pillar?
Yeah, so I'm currently actively training for a half Ironman that comes in August.
Ew, nice.
And I'm so stoked about it. I have another CrossFit coach here locally, which, I love Seth, by the way. You guys are great coaches as well. But he's been my coach for about 3 years now. And I asked him today, he was pushing me real hard. And I'm doing a plank, and he put a 25-pound weight on my back. And I said, thanks, coach. And I said, I've learned life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. So I'm thanking you for doing that for me, because it's going to make me stronger. And I said, after my triathlon, after my Ironman, I said, we've got to set a goal for something else. What's next?
Yeah. Love it. So having that thing to kind of look forward to. So like as men listen to this, it's like you can find yourself in a routine, but if you have these Spartan races, Ironman, half Ironman, whatever it is, these little things, because they're kind of like checkoffs also of like, I did this. I could accomplish this. Yeah. So that's helpful. Cool, man. Love it.
Can I make one more point real quick, Ned?
Yeah, please.
I want to tell you that the resolve that I had for the past 90 days, that was 100% learned trait that I seen in my father. And I just wanted to make that point known. And I didn't mean to stop you or cut you off, because I appreciate that. And I just, when I was going through that.
So tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah. So every day, my dad was like from early on, if he lost a job, he would get right back at it. He'd go find whatever work needed to provide for the family. When he finally worked his tail off to become a truck driver and owner operator, but he would wake up at 3 a.m. every day, get home at 6 to 9 every day. If he could make it to our practices, or ball games or sporting events or whatever recitals, he would do it. But he never gave up. Even when he got bad migraines. I remember, Ned, he would have these massive, horrible migraines and I know it sounds bad on a podcast, but he's throwing up as he's driving down the road. I'd be sitting in the truck right next to him. And he's like, I got to get this load on time. Like he had to make his deliveries on time, and just that grit that you can't teach people, or you could learn it, but that is something that's born in him. And he instilled that into my brothers and sisters as well.
Wow. Yeah, man. And that's something that when you see that example, it sets you up for a different kind of success. Like work ethic is a big deal. And a lot of our kids, it's not that us dads don't work hard. I think that we just don't always let our kids see it. And so we're creating this like false expectation that things just come to you. And you and I know that takes a lot of work. Matt, how old do you find yourself today?
I am 41 in body. And I believe I shaved off years off my life over my fitness pillar being leveled up over the last 3 years. So I'm probably in my early 30s.
Yeah, baby. All right, sick. I love it. How many years you been married?
20 years.
Oh my gosh, bro. Congrats, dude. We're about to hit our 20th this July 10th. And, it's crazy. Once you hit this like 40, 41 age, you've been married 20 years. Now you've been together longer than you were not. Right. And then also you and I both got married at pretty young ages, right? Like 2021. Yeah, I turned 21 6 days before my wedding, and you were pretty darn near close to that.
Yeah, I was. I was couple months, May.
Yeah, it's so funny because sometimes you see a 21-year-old now, you're like, dude, you look like a child. But there's something to be said about growing up together. Yeah, it's work, but it's good. Since we're at the topic of marriage and you've hit this 20th year mark, which is a fantastic milestone, what is the one word of advice you would give to the guy who's at 10 years? So think back to when you're at 10 years, maybe the stresses of money and young kids and things are a little bit higher at that moment. What would you maybe suggest to yourself or to another bro?
It's the easiest thing. And we so typically, it's easy to forget it, but it's just love. We got to love like Jesus loved. And I'm going through the Love Dare book right now. It's a 40-day challenge. And, we always face challenges, and I have to be reminded how to relove again. And just every day be constantly reminded that she's human. And if I just love her through whatever she's going through, the changes she's going through, as well as myself, but I've got to be the one that's got to lead my household in that.
So great. So give me something practical, like what is love and what is leading? Tell me one of those two things.
Yeah. Leading to me is not just by saying something. It's by doing what you say. And then sometimes you don't even have to say it, and you're going to lead just by example, just by being that role model. And then love, we know the Bible, love is patient, love is kind. Love is never ending. So even when she wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, or even myself, like I've got to find that love and love her through that no matter what.
So what you're talking about more, and I love it, right? I've got to find that love. That becomes an action, not a feeling.
Absolutely. Oh, definitely. Oh, without a doubt. It is something that you put forth in action. Absolutely.
I love it. It's something you do, not I felt this way, so I did this, right? It's almost like the feeling comes after the doing, or maybe the feeling doesn't come at all sometimes. But the doing, and that's like the how are we showing up? Like who are we being? So I just love bringing some clarity on that. So how many kiddos do you have?
I have 3 kids, 3 boys.
How old are they?
So my twins are 12 and my oldest is 16.
12 and 16. Okay, I love this. I have some questions around that. Where do you guys live?
We live in southern Indiana, just outside Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay, and then like suburb area, property area. What do you?
Yeah, we're kind of just outside of the fringe of the main city area, so we're a little bit more rural. So we only got a couple acres, but there's farm fields all the way around me.
And the boys, are they outside playing?
Yeah, actually, they've got a lawn mowing business that I usually help them mow, and they mow about 12, 15 lawns a week. So they're out actually mowing right now.
So what do you mean you help them mow?
So Keegan just literally got his license within the past 4 weeks. So before that, I'd have to go with him. So, excuse me. So I'd have to drive the vehicle, help them mow, and I'll get out there and mow with them.
So talk to me about this for a second, because I think a lot of us dudes who are maybe successful, and I'm just going to throw a number out. Say when you're working, you're making $250 an hour, $500 an hour. Like you got a successful business, right? So talk to me about why the benefit of you could just... Why get out of the truck and mow? Why drive your kid over there? Like that's taking out of time that you could go be making real money.
Yes. So I had a lawn mowing business when I was their age.
Sweet.
And I had to push my lawnmower. I didn't have a trailer and a truck.
Yeah.
I started when my boys, probably when I was 10 or 11. And by the time I was 16, 17, 18, I made really good money. I didn't have to go work any other job. And then I also could have the freedom to go and come as I pleased. So I'm teaching them the same thing. I want to teach them how to go fish, and not just how the fish comes to them and just being delivered to them. So I want to give them that work ethic and help them get through it and learn how to be committed to this. And even when you don't feel like it, you still have to go mow the lawns because your customer is counting on you. And oh, by the way, you got to figure out how to fix that lawnmower too. So, I mean, it's all these life lessons and skills that go into this, and they make they make really good money for being their age. Really good money.
That's awesome, man. Incredible. We could end this podcast right now. Okay. So with that in mind, what do you do for a living to feed the family? Now, real quick, you've heard my podcast. I love and hate this question. The reason isn't to like size each other up. The reason is to help men realize the possibilities and struggles of a fatherhood are all the same level playing field, whether you make $20 an hour or 500 an hour. With that being said, in a minute or so, what do you do for a living?
So I'm a builder developer. We build and develop residential single family homes or attached single family like townhomes. And then we do light commercial, we do small residential assisted livings, and then just a ton of property development. Could be commercial, residential, or light commercial.
Got it. Got it. And what's your team look like? How many employees are you serving?
So we have right about 15 team members right now. We actually downsized a little bit just to get more in line so that I can go and help my boys mow if I want to. So I've got a leadership team now that kind of runs the whole company. And I have an executive director. Her name's Kendrick, and she runs everything for me day to day.
Dude, I love that. Okay, so the point you made is I downsized, and part of that was so that I can go mow lawns with my kids. And I think as men, so talk to me through this, because I think a lot of men, we can get so caught up in my company's 3 million now, or 10 million now, or 50 million now. And there is something fun to be building something. But I don't know that we always pause and do kind of like a self-reflection of not when's enough, but what's right for me and my lifestyle. What were you thinking through as you made some decisions around that?
Yeah. So success to me is being able to have the freedom, the time to go and do what I want to do when I want to do that. And I say that relative, and I don't want to sound like the spoiled brat, if you will, but we at one time we reached 40 million in revenue, and I'm working more financial risk, and I'm like, man, where's my equilibrium at? Where my time, the revenue, like all these factors of my life and characteristics of my life meet up. Like, where's that at? And that's where we're seeking right now. We're seeking that equilibrium point in my business.
Love it. Now let me ask this question and we can move from it. How do you equate that for your team members as well?
So I feel that, first of all, I give them freedom in their PTO. And like, I want them to love coming into work. So make sure I pay them well. Make sure I build not me, but we build a culture. We have the best culture that we've ever had in the history of Infinity. And you build that culture, they're going to want to come into work. They're going to want to serve each other. And I consider myself a servant leader where I'm serving them. And in return, we build this mechanism that helps build this whole company out that supports our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. I was just at this conference about a month ago, and this guy was talking about this company he had built, and it was so cool. He showed us like his 150-year plan, and one of the metrics that they use, so it's been around 20 years, is how many families are they impacting, how much are they paying for benefits, and how much are they funding 401k. So that was like a metric, and I thought that was cool. And then the other thing he said was, I'm not a leader of this company, I'm a steward of this company. So it just, when you said servant leader to them, same concept, different words, right? Is like, how am I stewarding this well? And that's incredible. So last question on the business stuff. When you think about your sons, either A, knowing what you do, or building a company that they could be a part of one day without it being the typical, like, the owner's sons coming into this. You know, your oldest is 16. So what are some of your thought processes around that?
So I love it. Again, this goes to being a role model or being a leader and them seeing what I do, or even saying it and then putting it into action. So my 16-year-old just came to me. He texted me. He's like, Dad, I got to talk to you about an idea. I'm like, all right.
I love it.
So we get home. He's like, Dad, I want to do a vending machine business.
Okay.
And he came up on that all on his own. So he's like, I'm going to go talk to the principal. I want to go put one in school because they definitely need one. And, I want to find other locations to put these vending machines. So it's not that I put that thought in, hey, what about this? He literally came to me and said, Dad, I want to go do X. And he may not know the pros and cons of it, but that's okay. We're going to walk through that together, put a business plan together and do a SWOT analysis or what have you, and help him walk through that, because I want to encourage that mindset. If any of my boys, and all of them have expressed, hey, I'm going to get Dad's building business, or I'm going to get Dad's assisted living business. And I'm like, it's okay. Let's talk about that. Or you can go build one of your own. We can build a legacy in our business, no doubt, and pass it on. But I really want you guys to learn how to use your own imagination and build something that you have built, if that's what you want. Or you can take one of my businesses and move it on, and I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, so those are conversations you guys are having, and I think that's the fantastic part, is having that openness with your kiddos around that. Kind of shifting into some fatherhood specific questions, what would you say the role of the father is?
Yes, I'm going to say on definitely the role model, but more importantly, like, I believe it's the rock of the family. Like Jesus even said, I build my rock upon this. I build my rock. And if we've got to be just like him, if we got to be Christ centered in all we do, we've got to be the rock of our family. And emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever comes our way, wherever that wind, when it blows the hardest, we've got to be that solid rock that Jesus speaks about.
You just said emotionally, spiritually, physically. And I love those three, right? I think when asked the question, most of us fall into the financially, okay? And that is a component. But if I can be stable, or a rock, stability emotionally, like how many dads are coming home pissed off from work, or I hope Dad's not in a bad mood today. It's like dads can set the tone in the home. Spiritually, are you the spiritual leader, or is the mom the spiritual leader? And I'm not saying that a mom, I mean, dude, thank God for moms. Like, we would literally be extinct already if it wasn't for moms. But with that being said, I think moms are longing for dads to show up and lead spiritually. So emotionally, spiritually, and then physically, right? And we've kind of talked on the physical component, especially raising your boys, teaching them well. And I think what's funny is I think if those three were more the priority, the financial one's probably just going to come on its own. But so many of us are focusing on just the financial one and not thinking about those other three, that none of them are really working well. Or maybe the money one's working and everyone's pissed.
Yeah. And I had them flipped early on in my life when I was a early father, a young father. I remember Keegan was just a baby, and I missed so many things because I was so focused on building this business. And then as I'm growing, I'm like, I'm missing this. And so I've done a 180. I've done a reframe in my mind. And I'm like, these boys need me now, not after they're graduated from high school. Like, now is the time that I've got to show up and be the father that I need to be for them.
What helped you make that shift?
It's so simple. My wife showed me a video, and I'm going to tear up a little bit, Ned. But she showed me a video, and I hope my 16-year-old does not hang me for saying this about him. But showed me a video of when he was potty training. He literally took off his diaper, waddled his way to the trash can, threw it in the trash can, ran back to the bathroom, and slammed the door. As he's slamming the door, he says, "No, mommy, no," and slams the door in her face. And I'm like, my heart sank, like the dagger in the heart twisted, and was like, I don't want to miss any more of this. I want to be there. So from that point on, that was probably 5-6 years ago, probably 7 years ago. And I wanted to make sure I was there for everything. I coach as much as I can. I pick them up. I drive them to school. Well, now Keegan takes them back and forth to school. But I want to be there for every single thing that I can be there for in their life.
Man, that's so cool. All right. So then with that, this might kind of answer the question already, but my next question was going to be, when did you embrace fatherhood and say this is really important? So maybe it was kind of that moment, but maybe there was something before, like, were you excited? So you're 16-year-old, you've been married 20 years, you were married for 4 years. So you were, 25 or so and you had your first kid. Was it like, you're going to be a dad and you were super excited, or you saw your son be born, or, like at what point did you go, wow, this matters? Now, obviously we're all becoming and progressing and growing, but was there another moment before where you just were like, man, this fatherhood thing matters?
Yeah, I've got two moments in my life. And so number one, when Keegan, my oldest, was born, I remember to this day, the words stick out in my head. My father-in-law told me, he goes, when you walked out of that operating room, because my wife had a C-section, when you walked out of that operating room, you were the biggest puffed up man, so proud. And it was a couple years later when he also shared that with me, and the light bulb starts going off. What am I going to do differently? And then the other one is about 3 or 4 years ago, I read The Intentional Father. And I forgot the author's name, but he's out of New York and he's a pastor. And I'm like, he's doing all these things and he's showing up in all these ways for his son. I want to be there for my son in very similar fashion.
Yeah. Oh, killer. I think it's important for dudes to hear, because sometimes it's not like when you hear the words, you're going to be a dad or something. And I think sometimes dads feel bad about that. And I don't think they should. What has been a great resource, or like a few great resources for you as you think about your continued pursuit of fatherhood? You said Intentional Fatherhood book. So that's a great one. I have it sitting here somewhere, but I don't have it. I can't find it. What else has been a resource to you?
So, and this isn't just for you, Ned, but I'm telling you, this podcast has been an amazing resource for me. And that's not just me, lifting you up, but hearing all these father stories across the country, maybe even the world, and what they're doing, and I don't know what I don't know. And that's my biggest issue. So yes, I'm engaging in podcasts like this one, maybe two or three others. That's probably my biggest. And then as many books as I can read. I'm a slow reader because I have to write down all these notes to really get it in my head. But those would be my main resources. And then the community of men that I have here locally, like they're amazing fathers to their families, and high level, high performing. One's an ex Top Gun fighter pilot. The other is a huge real estate mogul. And they still show up in multiple ways, and large families, like 4 or 5 kids plus. And being able to just be in that community with them as well has helped me out tremendously.
Yeah. Cool. All right, I'm trying this new question on. I've tried it a few times. We'll see how it lands with you. You can answer, or you can skip it. But what's something your father did well, and then what's something you wish your father would have done differently?
Yeah. So I got a quick story. My brother had a really hard childhood. He was in a really bad accident with my father at age 6. I was 3. Really bad. Had a TBI, traumatic brain injury. And his whole life after that, he was just picked on. Even in freshman in high school, he went down to the park. We grew up on the south side of Chicago. And I remember my brother getting his jaw broken for no reason, just because it didn't quite fit in. So he had his jaw wired shut for like 9 weeks or something. And I remember the whole time, it was constant all the way through high school. And my dad was there every night, even if it was late night. He was like, let's talk through it. Let's figure out how I can help you defend yourself, how you can fight back, And my dad grew up inner city Chicago, South Side, back in the 40s and 50s, when the race thing was an issue, and if you went onto the African American side of the bridge, you'd get beat up, maybe even lose your life, and vice versa. So my dad was a tough dude. So he showed up and made us tough. Like, I remember kids coming to my house, and 2 different stories. One, to fight my brother, and my dad grabbed a shovel and said, "You're not going to get to him except if you come through me." My dad didn't care if he had to go to jail, if he had to defend his sons, And then some kids actually knocked on my door when I was like 8th grade, and they said, "Hey, this guy Jeff wants to fight Matt." So my dad says, "Hold on one second." He shuts the door. He comes to me. He says, "You got 2 options. You can not go out there and fight him, or you can go out there and fight him." He says, you better go out there and fight him because you'll never let him live it down.
Mm.
And then he goes, if the cops come, I didn't tell you that. But I
Oh
remember,
my gosh.
yeah, I
That's
remember.
wild.
It is wild, but all the stories, all the lessons that I heard my dad teach to my brother came back to me because I was there just listening in this whole time, every night as my brother was getting picked on. My dad was helping him to teach how to defend himself. And so sure enough, I went out there and fought him. And fast forward, that same kid I went to high school with, we were on the bus from some event, messing around on the bus jokingly. And someone's like, who wants a piece of Matt? And Jeff looks at me and goes, I don't want any of him. I tried that once already.
No way. That's awesome. Oh man, what a game changer for you and your confidence versus if you didn't go out there. And man, it's almost like you feel like that would never happen in today's day and age, which is so unfortunate. I mean, we had a couple situations where my son, he was at a public school, which I have a kid at a public school now, so it's whatever. But long story short, I had my son, I was like, you got to stick up for your sister if this happens. And so he did. And he fought back, and the principal, female, had told him, next time this happens, I just want you to lay on the ground in a ball and yell for help. I'm like, that is not going to do anything for you. But I do want to ask this question. Was your mom around during this time as well?
Oh, yeah. Yes. So my mom was there. Great mom. My dad was a man of faith. We went to church every Sunday, as often as we could. And my mom was just a great mom. She did have an issue with having self-confidence in her. And but she was always there. And, oh, Frank, don't teach him that. Don't do this. But on the contrary, she saw what happened to my older brother and was like, hey, you got to do what you got to do. We got your back.
Yeah. And I think that that's really important. And I think most of the men listening to this podcast are probably have a voice in their home and have established that. And I don't mean established like patriarchal woman, shut your mouth, not that, but understanding that your sons and your daughters need both the feminine and the masculine. And not to say that, I mean, my wife probably sometimes would be like, you better kick his ass before I would. So right. So I'm not saying that it just has to be one or the other, but to have both and in support of each other. And you made a great comment. You're like, your mom's like, oh, Frank, don't teach him that. But also, right. And your dad was stepping into that role. And it just goes to show dads, don't be so emptied of the tank after work that you can't stay up a little later to be there for your son and talk him through it. He needs you. Yes, he needs his mom to hold him and cuddle him, but don't let her do your role. Let her do the holding and cuddling, and you step in and talk it out. Not that they both can't, but overly you get the point. Our sons need that. I mean, just to know that your dad has your back, you could pretty much eat shit for a long time knowing that you can go home to a father who's got your back.
That's right. Yep. And I'll give you an example of current day with my twins. So literally, I just got an email from the principal at their school, actually appreciating them for sticking up for somebody who was getting bullied. So our core values is faith, love, lead, respect, and improve. So faith, obviously that's number one in our life. Love, we always want to show respect to everybody, our brothers, our sisters, our friends, whoever. And then lead, I want them to learn to lead in all they do, and then improve. And then we have another one that's not true core value, but it's you're never going to be bullied. You're never going to be a bully, and you're never going to allow somebody to be bullied. So if you have to stick up for someone that's being bullied, I've got your back. I'll deal with the principal of the administration at that point.
Yeah. Dude, amazing. Okay, so that was for what your father did well. Do you want to answer the question what you wish your father would have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt, open and honest, vulnerable. My dad's 89 today. He's in an assisted living by us. There's two things that come up for me right in that question. Number one, he did not manage money very well. He did not teach me or my brother or sister how to manage money. And he just didn't do it. And I wish he would have. I wish he would have led in that financial sense. Number one. And number two, um, he really didn't have trust on my mom, which added to her self-confidence issue. Like, accused my mom of infidelity all the time. And I clearly knew that wasn't the case. And if it was, I probably have 100 brothers and sisters. So
But it was his own insecurities as a man, which I think is, one of the things that you and I see regularly. I mean, we were just at this thing with 150 men and asked the question, who wrestles with insecurity? And I'd say 95 of us took a step forward in that circle. Me being one of them, right? Is that we wrestle with this insecurity, and where's that getting in the way? And how wild that, 40 years later, 30, whatever, you started recognizing this in early, middle school, high school. It's something you notice. It's something that comes to mind as a 40-year-old man, is that I noticed an area of my dad's insecurity. And so I bring that up to go, guys listening, our sons could be asked one day when they're 40, hey, what do you wish your dad differently for your dad? And our confidence matters, like, to our sons. It has an impact on who they become. And so it's important for us to step into the fullness of who we are. That doesn't mean be a cocky a-hole, but it does mean to work on those areas of insecurity.
that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. We talk through, and I speak into my boys' lives all the time. And I also tell them, like one of my boys play soccer. They're on travel teams. One's on the A team, one's on the B team. And really, the Finn, that's my middle child twin. Believe it or not, there is one. He is a goalie, and there's another goalie on the A team, so they put him on the B team. But I'm like, man, that doesn't define who you are or how good you are. Maybe that other, and he's a good friend of ours, the other goalie, his name's Luke. And dude, he does an amazing job as goalie, and he's bigger than him. But don't let that ruin your confidence.
And it's good. I mean, sometimes those things are good. Like my daughter, 11-year-old, just had her first jujitsu comp, and she won her first match and she lost her second. And I was talking to her through, like, I'm really glad she had both experiences, because the losing can actually help you build confidence, right? Because it gives you opportunity to grow. And if you're just always sitting on the top, it's going to crumble at some time. You got to have the experience of failure to be well-rounded and confident.
Yes, yes, no doubt. I teach them that all the time. And, if you go back to the Bible, it talks about light and dark, right? So you can't appreciate the light if you don't have the darkness, and you can't appreciate being on top if you don't go through the failure of losing sometimes. Not that you failed, you're just learning. And the only way to learn is through that failure. What did I do wrong? How can I improve? Can I go put more effort into it? So, I mean, it all is intertwined, and I love that so much about that.
Yeah. You've mentioned it a couple times, and just with your intentionality around of being a dad, what is your guys' philosophy on school? What kind of school do you have your kids in?
So we literally just shifted from a public school here locally, and I'm telling you, God's timing is the best of all. His timing, not ours. So we, from the beginning, I was like, hey, why don't we send our kids to Christian school? We go to Christian Academy. That's what it's called, Christian Academy of Indiana. And my wife's like, no, Lanesville's right here. They know all their friends. They're going to go there. So we put them in from kindergarten all the way up until 2 years ago. Keegan was a freshman when we started at Christian Academy. And then my boys were seventh grade. My 12th graders, my 12-year-olds, were in seventh grade. And so when we shifted, there was all this woke stuff going on. All this, I mean, just like with the furries and they don't know what gender they are or who they are, and it's being allowed in this school that was never allowed before. And not that I want to flee away from it, but I truly believe that the community that you surround yourself with will help determine your success or who you become and your character as well. So we settled into Christian Academy. Day one, through like the first 2 months of school, like my heart sank for my oldest child. My twins settled in right away. They're like extroverts, like go kill it. Like they'll meet anybody. They'll talk to any stranger out there, good and bad. But my heart sank for Keegan, my oldest, because he was so sad. He's like, I'm missing my friends. I wish I could go back. And we fast forward to today. He's done a 180. He's like, thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom, for pushing me to be successful here. And it showed up in his grades. I'll just speak on this real quick. He was like in an honors math class. I was never honors anything, but he's super intelligent and super smart. And so he tested into the honors math class. Well, the first test, I'm always like, how you doing? How's it going? What can I do to help? We're talking about it. And then he gets his first test. He comes home. I'm like, dude, I'm so excited. Like, what did you get on your test? He's like, Dad, I have a plan. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, what did you get on your test? He's like, well, let me tell you my plan. He told me, he laid out this whole plan. And part of the plan was his teacher even came to him because he got a D on his first math test. His teacher even came to him after that first math test and said, why don't you think about going back to regular math? And he goes, Dad, that got in my head and I was going to prove her wrong.
Yeah, baby. I like this kid.
Yes, absolutely. He did a 180. He got an A in that class for the year. And now he's thriving. He's like, thank you so much. Like, he's on their soccer team. He's got a load boat full of friends that are good community for him. Like, their parents like know us. We get to know them because we want to know who our kids are going to their houses, So we're in a good place right now, a really good place.
So, man, the way that you communicated that all to me, I know dads, I know we're busy. I know we can get stuck in like, there's a bunch of stuff to fix around the house. I got to make the money. And those can kind of be and then our kids' sports, like maybe we default into our kids' sports a lot. The school component, you have to have a voice in the school component as a dad, especially for your boys. Like, school can be really difficult for boys in the sense that I just don't think it's designed for boys specifically, right? So, your oldest boy clearly has like he digs school and he can go after it. But our boys just need their dad's voice ultimately. And especially if you look at the school system, you're typically it's primarily female leadership, which is fantastic. It's great, except that our boys and girls need both male and female leadership in their lives. And so for us to have a voice in their schooling is important. And then kudos to you, taking that leap to go, this is what I think is best to put him in this school. And you were sad for him, but you let it ride out. And that is now, because similar situation with my kids moving to Hawaii. And now if they have some major shift in their life, they will have that experience to know that they'll be okay. That these seasons of like, it's hard to make new friends and get settled in is hard, but possible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. It was an amazing outcome. And I only give credit to God because without him, none of that would have been possible. And if I may add this real quick, there was a situation at that public school that we left where the freshman boys, which my boy Keegan was a freshman, would have been with them. Yeah, and in the sports locker room, where there was some hazing, some really extreme hazing, where some of these kids might actually have gone to jail for it, and he would have been in that. So that's when I say the timing. I wanted to make sure that is known. Like, God's timing is perfect in all things, and He allowed us to move before any of that transpired happened to my kid.
Yeah. Okay. This is such a sick moment right now. Okay. Now, I think when people hear, Matthew with his successful company talk about God's timing, it's easy to go, well, God's just blessing you. And it's like, well, my kid would have been in that locker room. And here's the difference I want to say to those negative voices in your head. If you're listening to this right now with negative voices, here's the difference. God's speaking to all of us. It's just, are we listening? Okay. So if you're not in the game of the conversation around school, if you don't know your kids' friends and their dads, if you're too busy for that, then it's not that anybody is more blessed than you. It's that you're not creating margin to listen. And that's hard to do, right? I mean, every morning I'm up reading my scripture, talking to God. There's moments I hear him. There's moments I don't. But if you don't create the space to be connected to your creator who wants you to lead and love your family, he's going to talk to you, but you're not there to listen. And Matt is listening. And so I encourage you, create a practice of listening so that you can lead, love, and serve your family well. That's what's happening here.
Absolutely. And just for the record, Ned, I am human. and I am not perfect. And
Oh,
I've,
no.
I've,
Yeah.
man, I've faced the obstacles, and those I've got to learn to overcome. And it's something new every day. And man, anybody that's listening to this podcast that wants to reach out to me, reach out to me. I'll speak frank with you, just like I did with you last week, you know? So I've got my struggles and I'm not perfect. And I want people to know that.
100%, dude. Yeah, I'm such a dick most of the time. Not most of the time, but I can be.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, this question's important, man. I know we're running out of time almost, but I've got like these four last things. Okay, you have 3 boys. Talk to me about your conversations with them about one day being a husband, having a spouse. Because in reading kind of the way you answered the questions pre podcast, one of the things you mentioned is that one of the most important decisions you will make with your life is who you marry. And I think those conversations start now. What do those conversations look like with you and your boys?
Yes. So I think at first it goes back to being that role model and the leader that we talked about. They've got to see me. Like if I say something, they got to see me act it out, or else dad's just lying. Dad's just not living up. There's no integrity there, you know? So number one. Number two, I am constantly speaking into them, because it is no matter the after salvation, after being saved and knowing that you're a child of God, like your biggest decision is going to be who you marry, because that is forever. When you take that vow, that's the first thing. What kind of character do you have if you give up on your vow? Not that, no shame to anybody that has gone through past issues, or they had struggles they had to deal with. But I want them to know that when you step into that ring, the ring that you put on your finger, when you step into that ring, you are coming and you're showing up every day and you're loving unconditionally, no matter what, all the way to the end. And you make that choice. It's your choice. Like, I'll help guide you. I'll help be a parent. I'm going to be your parent the rest of your life. And we'll talk through it as much as you want to. Now, I'm not going to insert myself in their family life, like to be one of those parents. But leading up to that, I want them to really take consideration on who that person is. Do they think like you? Are they compatible with you? Do they have the love for God like you do? You need to be better together. Like, you need to learn how to serve God better together than if you were apart. Like, if someone's going to tear you apart, that might not be the best compatibility. Now, during that marriage, something may go off the rails that you didn't intend. And you've got to learn to love through that.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't change that it's going to be messy, right? I mean, that's part of the deal is like we marry somebody that's opposite in us in certain ways, but character wise, right? I heard somebody recently say, don't marry for personality, marry for character. And I like that. And that's, it's hard when you're young. One thing my mom had us do when we were young is pray for our spouse. So even now on occasion, we'll, as when we're praying as a family, we'll be like praying for our daughter's husbands and my son's wife one day. And I think it's interesting because then they start to go like, oh, I wonder what they're doing right now. Like I wonder where they live and who they are and what their parents are like. And so just to get your kids thinking about that, I think that's good because everything in our culture is saying just like, have sex with whoever you want, whenever you want. Marriage is meaningless. And that's like a huge breakdown in family, which is anti-kingdom.
Yes. And something that comes up for me, Ned, and I know you have daughters, 3 daughters, 1 boy. Is that right?
4 daughters and 1 son. Yeah.
4 daughters, 1 son. So Jeremy McWilliams, the one thing that resonates to me, I love it when he speaks. He's so good at it.
He's amazing.
Yes. And as what we went through, he says, what kind of man are you going to be to raise the men that are able to marry my daughter or your daughters, Ned? Like, that's a challenge for me. Like, I'm taking that to heart because like at the same token, I want to find your daughters or Jeremy's daughters, quote unquote, because I know how you're raising them for my boys.
100%. Yeah. If we want this thing to work, meaning family and kingdom forever, then like I get the idea of arranged marriages. And I know that that's not what any of our kids would want us to lean into. But the point is, if we can set the example, they're going to be looking for somebody like your family or Jeremy's family or Skylar's family, like these men who are leading well, who are fighting for their marriages, who are continuously becoming. Dude, remarkable. Okay. This podcast is Fatherhood Field Notes. We've been doing it for the last 48 minutes and 21 seconds of just opening up your life to us. The mantras rebel and create. What's something that you are rebelling against, and what do you hope to create out of that?
Yes. So I am rebelling against society, not creating or helping their boys or their kids find their purpose and passion in their life. Like that's my vision. That's my mission. So my personal vision statement is helping the youth fulfill their purpose, I'm helping them find their purpose, helping the elderly fulfill their purpose, all while maintaining God's plan.
So, I mean, this seems well thought out. This seems like this isn't the first time you said this. Okay, so what do you mean by the elderly? Explain that piece to me.
Yeah, so the elderly reach a certain age in our society, and they get dumped into nursing homes where the care is subpar in our society. And, I don't think that's right. Like, my mom passed away because she had a UTI and they didn't give her the right medicine for nothing. I lost my mom because of negligence. So they're not fulfilling their purpose.
That's the piece. Yeah. What's their purpose? Like, what's the elderly's purpose? It's funny because we even say the word elderly and it's like, oh my gosh, wasting away. And that's such a missed opportunity, right? Why do you think it's a missed opportunity?
Absolutely. Two things come up real quick for me. Number one is the wisdom, the stories, the knowledge, the experience that they have that they could give our youth or give me even. And how can we be fulfilled if we just spend a little time with them, loving on them? Because, like, I hate to say it, like, I haven't seen my dad in a couple weeks now because I was traveling so much for business. And he's literally doing so I'm building these residential care homes so my dad could be the first resident. Now I can see him every day, So they have given to us for even fought wars for us. Why can't we go and give back to them just a little bit of love? And all they want is that time. That's all they want.
That's good. It's really good. Okay, let's just see here. Before I ask my last question, a word that I've heard come up for you a few times is selfless. Before I ask my final question, what does selfless mean to you, and how does that show up in being a father?
Yep. Selfless, the first example that we know to be the best version of selfless is Jesus Christ. Without him being selfless, we wouldn't have that gift of salvation. And it is my job to be as close to Christ-minded as possible. And so if I'm being Christ-minded, if I'm giving myself daily to my family, to my pillars, to my business, to my associates, to my workers, if I'm leading, if I'm being a servant to them, I am being selfless. And I am loving to the utmost degree if I have that characteristic in my life. So that's what comes up for me with that.
Yeah, men listening right now, I would challenge you. I think it's easy for us to say, I love my family, I serve my family. And those are things we say and we should, and that's fantastic. But a statement Matthew just said is, what am I giving myself to? And there's what's the opposite of giving? It's taking, right? So I think a lot of us is like, well, what am I taking? Like, how am I using my family to make me feel good? How am I using my business to make me feel good? How am I using a lot of the things around us we can use selfishly, although the appearance is not that. But how am I giving myself away in this moment right now? How am I giving of myself? I think that could be a beautiful question to keep in our mind. Matthew, this has been incredible. My final question, legacy question. Imagine 30 years from now, you are peering into the homes of your three sons. You're standing in a cul-de-sac, looking through the window. You see lives being played out. What is it that you see that brings a tear to your eye, a smile to your face to go, I showed up. I did my job.
Yep. My family, my boys, they don't want to move away. I want them to be by me. And I know a lot of times the boy can go and move wherever the female is, or wherever she's from. But I want to be so connected to my family when I'm 70, 80 years old and healthy. Lord willing, I'm healthy, because the one thing that I used to love doing with my boys is throwing them as high as they can. And then, high, like 15 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And then catching them.
Yeah.
And then my wife saying, you better stop because you're going to drop them. I ain't going to drop them. I promise you that. But I want to be able to do that at Christmas time. I want to be able to go see them whenever I want. I remember Rachel's dad buying Keegan like every day. He would take Keegan to the store to buy him like 5 donuts every day. Finally, I said to my wife, I'm like, babe, you got to tell your dad he's got to quit buying these donuts. He's going to be diabetic by the time he's 2, and and he did. But I want to be able to engage in my grandkids like that. That's what I want.
Matthew, man, every second of our time together today has felt just so real, so honest. I'm just inspired by you. I feel blessed and honored to be connected to you, to know you. I think when you and I met last week, you made this statement, I think, which most of us men wrestle with, like, am I a good dad? Like there's this thing inside of us, like, am I doing enough? And my friend, you are an incredible man, an incredible father. I know you love your wife well and people well. The way you're living your life is inspiring. Keep doing what you're doing. You are setting your sons up to be very successful when it comes to the overall well-rounded 4-pillar man. Much love to you. I look forward to staying connected with you and just keep being yourself. Keep becoming yourself. That's a version that I love.
Thank you, Ned. It's been a privilege to talk to you. It's great knowing you.
What an incredible conversation. I so loved getting to spend that time with Matthew. I've only had a few conversations with him, but like, as I alluded at the beginning, we had this connection last week, which really just set it up for the perfect, sweet connection today for us to just jump straight into just raw authenticity. And, as I think back to the moments that were really significant to me, it's kind of this like overall package of humility, success. You don't feel any ego, but you feel like this guy is making the most of the 24 hours that are given to him every single day. And I just, there's just so much wonderful things that he's doing in just kind of the day-to-day intentionality around being a dad. The one thing that I would say, if I had to put my finger on something, is this idea of like reflecting on the alignment of success, finances, and time with family, and how it really feels as though that Matt has made some shifts in his life to make sure he's showing up for his family in the way that when he's, an 85-year-old man, he'll look back and be proud of the way that he showed up. My dudes, my dads, if this is powerful, helpful, valuable, please write a review. It means the world to me if you just throw up a review saying, hey, great podcast. And then even better is share it with a homie, send it to a dad. We need to give other dads pats on the back. So if you can send a text saying, hey dude, you know what? I noticed you're such a great dad. I occasionally listen to this fatherhood podcast. And I thought maybe you dig it. Here you go. It's such a cool way for us to stay connected and encourage another dude. All right. Thank you, bro. All you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Who you are matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, your spouse, your community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.